Like the things they tell you to make you feel good.
Thanks. And we're live. Hey everybody. How you doing? It's your man J Kev here with Lafe Taylor, just having our regular conversations about all things
Regular.
health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. Regular. We're regular. We're consistent. So just how just having conversations about everything in life, man. Health, wealth, relationships, happiness, and everything in between. Just Leif, just going to start off talking about the importance. I've been thinking about how important it is to stay encouraged, and how important
Yep.
it is to be able to encourage yourself in today's times. You know how I do. I'm always consuming a lot of news and information with respect to current events and where things are, and the trajectory and trends of where we may be headed. And in light of the good things and the bad things that we may be on track to uh, make our stops to, it's always important and essential to keep hope and cultivate self encouragement, and to just learn how to look at the brighter side of things while you go through some of the dimmer uh, things in your life. It's very important. And one thing that's kind of got me thinking about that, I was listening to a podcast with Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
He's back to making his rounds, I guess, lately, and that he's gotten another book that just came out. And I was watching him on one of the podcasts we always talk about. I forgot the name of it. Um, Dang, what is that? But anyway, he was making his rounds, and he was just talking about the importance of making yourself of service, making yourself useful, and finding something worth striving and struggling for, uh, given the results or given the way things may be in life, and how how oftentimes life throws a lot of things at us, but it's important that we find a way to stay useful and stay encouraged and stay moving forward. And I just thought it was an important thing to hold on to, given that a lot of his content is cultivated in the from the perspective of some philosophers like Nietzsche, some writers like Solzhenitsyn, and some other writers like Carl Jung. So just given that context out of which he, gives his uh, the way he looks at the word, I just thought that it's poignant about just making sure you stay encouraged and making yourself useful.
So, what were some of the tips that he gave in terms of doing that?
Finding something outside of yourself to contribute yourself to, being of service, finding a way of being useful or of service, because he just says, life punishes those who don't find a way to be useful. I mean, if you don't find something to give yourself to, then uh, you become isolated, and you become
Obsolete.
obsolete, self-focused, and that can lead to a whole a lot of things, whether it be you're self-focused, which could lead to a whole array of things. Take your pick, whether it be depression, whether it be narcissism, whether it be bitterness, whether it be hopelessness. When you become self-focused, and that leads to the danger of just leading to a not so good life.
I got a question.
All right,
So, based on that, can you do those things and still be self focused?
what's that?
Like give and help, but still be self focused.
Yeah, you could have a self-interest, for the reason or the intentions of why you carry out certain behaviors. Most definitely.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. 'Cause I just wanted to point that out because sometimes it it may appear one way, but the intentions are all different. We see that
Yes.
all the time. Well, we don't necessarily see it, but it happens all the time in terms of public service, right? The people that
Yeah.
are set aside to serve end up being self-serving in a lot of ways.
And how is it that we find out, or a lot of times, how is it that we uncover somebody's intentions?
A scandal, a
Yeah.
scandal.
T-
You know,
Usually, time will tell in that your
yeah,
intentions, you can only mask or hide your true intentions for so long, and that the inconsistencies between your behavior and why you're doing something, uh, over time, it always never fails to seems to get exposed. Not to say that, there might be there might be individuals that get away with, make their way through this life to where their intentions are never really uncovered or unveiled. But for the most part, I would say that if you watch somebody long enough, you know their intentions are always betrayed, in
that's why I
some way,
always say
shape,
if you
or form.
speak long, you speak wrong,
Yeah.
because eventually it'll come out. And so that's it's especially now, and with the 24/7 life cycle all over the world,
Oh
that
man,
it is
and
bound
hot
to
mics
show.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's bound to show who you are, right? Certain things you do, certain things you say, and not only that, it's just like criminality in the sense that if ever you tell somebody else what you're doing, it's gonna come out somehow. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
and so that's always a thing. So, but yeah, I definitely understand where it was Jordan Peterson, right, that you're talking about.
yeah.
I definitely understand the premise. Make sure that you don't self isolate, and add value to the world, because really that's where you get purpose from. You know what I'm saying? It gives you value, because I've been talking to quite a few people recently, and one of the things that I notice, and one of the things that keeps me in check in terms of like my goals and my purposes, is that I've met plenty of people who have no purpose, but they have the things that everybody wants to pursue, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like one thing that I try to do is listen to people, and what I mean by that is I listen to their entire story and not just the snippets that sound good. I like to listen to the nuanced details of saying that, okay, yeah, I did this, but my life is really not happy, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to people talk, they'll slip it in there. It might not be so obvious, but if you pay attention to the words that they say, a lot of times you'll see where it's like, oh, this really hasn't provided them with what they thought it would, right? And so I try to pay attention to those conversations with real people. And I've met people that have just told me about the struggles and the things that they have gone through, but on the outside appearance they seem successful, like in terms of really just they're just rich. And but there's a lot of missing gaps in there, and you
we we
realize.
often we often conflate the two sometimes, don't we? Or we
Yeah,
and
because
in our
because it's
current culture.
because the things we see on television is what's marketed, right? It is not necessarily real. The things we see on the internet, the things we see on Instagram or whatever, is not real. The facades oftentimes win over, right? It's the marketing of the American dream and those kinds of things, and you realize that it's just marketing. It's the yellow brick road leading to the wizard, and once you get to the wizard, you realize that the yellow brick road is nothing but painted bricks, and the guy behind the mask is nothing but a frail man, right? And so often we chase after the frail man, thinking that that's the answer. Because think about it, they went to the wizard specifically to get an answer to all their ills, and it's like, yeah, you didn't have to make that journey, bro. You could have you could have figured this out somewhere else. So yeah, that's one of the things I like to do, is just pay attention to that kind of stuff and really focus
Language.
on. What you say?
Yeah, when you're talking about pay attention to somebody's language and their
Yeah,
speech
body
and how they
language,
talk.
all of it, and
That's what in one of his books, the 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson. That's one of the things he talks about when it comes to one of the rules that we want to try. One of the things we want to try to do in our life is be precise in our speech.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
kind of makes me think of, let your yay be yay, your nay be nay in a bit, and that it's important to be mindful of and consider what we say, and not only what we say, but how we say it, I guess.
Yeah. And also not only that, but it often dictates your direction, right? And
Man,
a simple example is if you ask somebody what their goal is, like what is your goal in life, right? And a lot of times it'll be a very general or generic answer. Or if they have it's like ask them how much money you want to make. It'll sometimes be really generic.
vague.
You know what I'm saying? And so if you're not specific, then there can be no plan added to it, right? It's like, oh, I want to be wealthy, I want to be strong. Okay, what does that mean?
Hmm.
What how strong are you trying to be? Are you trying to be strong in terms of weightlifting? Are you trying to be strong in terms of body weight? Are you trying to be strong mentally? And if so, what does that mean individually, right? Because you have, even if it's weightlifting, you have some people that are strong in one thing, but they can't do another because their focuses are totally different, right? And so again, being specific helps you achieve things, and it helps give you direction. Otherwise, you just constantly fool yourself in a sense that if you keep saying these open generic things and it's like, okay, what does that mean? And a lot of times people can't tell you, like, and that's why, often when we talk about being very specific about what your life goals are, what your plans are, what things that you value, what does it mean to be rich for you, what does it mean to be wealthy, what does it mean for you to be happy, instead of using these marketing catchphrases, what does that actually mean in a real way for you, so that you actually know whether or not you want it once you get it, right? And because a lot of times you may not, yeah, it's like you're constantly chasing it. It's like rich people still trying to be rich, and it's like, hold on, what does that mean? You already have money. To somebody else, you're extremely wealthy, but to yourself, you're not. And that number keeps changing because you don't have a specific in mind once you get there.
Hmm. What's one specific goal that you think about in terms of something that's specific that says that, hey, I've achieved something, I've reached something. Like for
So,
me, for example, I'm thinking about right now. One of the things I always say, as far as like being fit and healthy enough to where you can still run around and maybe work, be with your kids and your grandkids.
yep.
And I was just thinking about how now it seems like yesterday I can remember when my sons were like real small. I was like, man, I can't wait to get to the gym with them. And I
Alrighty.
when I went to the gym, I was like working out, preparing for the day. When they get in the gym, it's like now it's here. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
it's like now. Like my oldest, he comes in, it's like I deadlift 405 today. And in my head,
Like
and
what?
in my head, I'm like, oh, so I had to go in the gym, start dead.
Like now you gotta play catch up.
Now I gotta go in the gym and start deadlifting
Yeah.
and squatting. But at this point, what it was always one of my goals to be at this point to be able to do that. Because that's what my dad did. At this point in my life, my dad was in there in the gym with me doing the same thing. He was fit enough to get under the bar and do the same thing that I was doing. So
Yep.
it was just like one of those little small specific goals that I always had in mind.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like I guess since it's a kind of a far out, well, it used to be far out for you, but it's here now.
Yes, here.
Yeah, one I guess one of my goals. I don't know. I'm obsessed with animation right now, so everything revolves around that for me right now, with the exception of that in terms of career goals. So I caveat those things, right?
Yeah,
In terms of family, like in this particular time, in this particular space, because your kids grow and they change and all of that kind of stuff. For me, my daily goal is just to see my kids and my wife and give them hugs and kisses. That's it. Like it is very attainable, and the reason it wasn't always just that, right? But
yeah.
over time, you get older, you get wiser, you experience a lot of things. You realize that the stuff that you thought mattered did matter, and the pursuits that you wanted to go after don't always matter. And so for me, the more I met a lot of these people, the more I started changing the way I valued life, right? And because I started, because again, if you see enough examples, I always think about the scriptures and Proverbs talking about wisdom crying in the street, waiting for somebody to lay hold of her, right?
Yep.
And I've seen this stuff cry out plenty of times, but as I got older, I started to pay more attention to it. I started to pay more attention to the lifestyle associations, and that's not to say that that's always bad. I'm not saying
Right.
that, but
Right.
for some people, the sacrifices they make are worth it. For me, they're not, right? And I've come to that conclusion, like for a lot of things, and that comes in terms of time, that comes in terms of location, meaning that if I go implant myself into something and my family is not attached to it, then that means I'm trading time with them, right? And so I think about all of those different things. I think about what it takes to do certain things, and I know what it takes. And and seeing that, I'm like, nah, that's not what I want at this moment, right? At this moment in life, because I'd rather now I've changed my pace, I've changed my construct on how I go about doing things. I don't mind taking a longer time doing it because now I can reduce my stress. I can maintenance my relationships at home, and then with other people. Because as soon as that stuff starts ratcheted up, your threshold of patience gets shorter because you have to constantly speed up. So for me, those are the things I pay attention to. The good thing for me in terms of being in isolation is I get time to think. I get time to really consider what is valuable for me. And I'm not saying that this is valuable for everybody else. I talk to actually, the irony though, I talk to way more people now than I
Yeah.
ever did.
I
That's
mean,
the irony of it
it's
all.
easier given to sit in one space these days and be able to reach out with all the
Because I'm not
channels.
moving. Because if I'm out and
Right.
I'm moving, then I don't have time to sit and talk, right? So I'm out and I'm moving and I'm doing different things. So you have less time to actually, be on the phone unless you're doing it during travel. But we live in Kentucky and it doesn't take long to get somewhere, right? So there's really none of that commuting talk unless you're stuck in traffic at 4:30, right? And so it's those kinds of things that I realize, and even again talking to people in positions where I want to be, it helps me validate the direction I'm going and how I'm approaching it. So I think that was kind of a long roundabout answer, but a very specific
You hit
is,
it.
yeah, a very specific is again seeing my family every day, being healthy for them, and
Right.
like you said, longevity. I think more about longevity than I necessarily do about fitness in terms of absolute strength. But
Yes. Yeah.
those things are on my mind. You can see I got the pull-up bar in the background. All of that stuff. I've really been focusing in on that. I eat less in terms, I've been really thinking about that because calorie counting in terms of longevity in life, there's been an association linked to the amount of calories you take. It's almost like you have a set number of calories you can eat your entire life, and then as soon as you hit that number, you die. Based on the research and based on all of that kind of stuff. So I'm very mindful of the frequency in which I eat. I've been tweaking my
And
diet here over the past few
hence
weeks.
why intermittent fasting is that lifestyle is growing.
Yeah,
And yeah,
because
people
just
are starting to.
yeah, and I'm just basing it on the information I received. That information may change, but from what I've seen and just even culturally and other cultures and things like that, I mean, the model has been shown, so that's kind of where I'm leaning my longevity toward. It's like, okay, if I can do these things, I can add some, at least in terms of health. I don't want my health to fail me because there's all kinds of things that can take you out of this world. The world
Right.
is almost designed to really just take you out. It really is, in terms of, you know,
The
just
setup and
aging, yeah,
design
disease, all of that kind of stuff, right?
is
And
designed
so
for struggle.
yeah, and so I just try to, be mindful of that and just daily, like literally daily, just thankful for my blessings. Like seriously.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that goes circling back to the start of our topic. One of the things that helps you stay encouraged and you know stay in a good place is being grateful on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Just looking for and searching for and finding something to be grateful for on a regular basis
Yeah.
versus
Go ahead. Go ahead.
versus always finding something to complain about, and it's bad.
Yeah, because it almost doesn't even matter what you're grateful for, to be honest.
Yeah,
In terms of just the way the psychology and the way it affects your health, right?
yes.
You wake up, was like, I'm grateful for this grain of rice. Not that you should worship a grain of rice or anything, but it's
Mhm.
like just being grateful for that. It just changes your perspective. It changes the cortisol levels in your body. It changes your response. It changes your vibrations with everybody else, your moods, all of those little things just from being grateful. James Altucher, he's very famous, and he used to
Yeah.
talk about that all the time. He said, "I write a list of what I'm grateful for." He said, "It's actually doesn't even matter what I write on the list." He's like, it just helps me psychologically because I know it works.
It
So he said,
places, yeah, like you said,
yeah,
it places you in the right frame of mind
yep,
as as far as your outlook. It's the feeling and emotion that goes along with it. Like you said, no matter what it is, it's the
yep,
feeling, the emotion that goes along that's attached to that. What it being grateful. It
yeah.
helps you see the positive and the opportunities versus versus the barriers and uh, the bad stuff, the negative
Yeah.
stuff.
If you see it as a struggle, then it'll be a struggle, regardless of what it is. It's like, man, I don't want to pick this piece of paper up off the ground because this is gonna take time out of my day. If you start doing that, then you will never do it because it becomes a struggle, right? And it's like, oh, it's not so bad. Just do something, and then you realize, even going back to the what you're talking about with Jordan Peterson, is in terms of service. If you look at service in the same way, like, okay, what is it going to hurt me to do just this small thing, right? Or just to talk to somebody, or just to be like, hey, send somebody a message or whatever, just being of service, right? And that can vary in terms of scale. But
Yep.
sometimes just the smallest things, what is it going to hurt you to do it? Because me sometimes, and I'm not saying I do this all the time by any means, but sometimes if I think about it, I'm like, I might as well do it because I thought about it for a reason, right?
Hmm.
If I need to say hi to somebody, somebody I may not even talk to on a regular, because I talk to a lot of people, but for me, again, it's very specific the people I talk to, like seriously,
Yeah.
because I'm so involved in this art stuff that I can't get out of it in a sense. But if I think about somebody, like, hey, let me just hit them up, like, hey, how you doing? Something that simple. Like, hey, simple conversation over in less than nothing, right? And so sometimes if we just do those kinds of things, it'll just impart goodwill amongst, and you can start building community.
Something along those lines. I got a question. What do you think that is when you think of somebody and like they show up?
I don't know. It happens a lot for me anyway. Because I always tell my
Yeah.
wife, just so I can have a witness. Like I remember like this one time in specific, this kid. Well, he's not even a kid. He was just younger than me, but he was like dope at like animation. Like he did 3D graphics for commercials and stuff. Anyway, I was driving one day. I was like, oh man, that looks like his name is Jason. I was like, that looks like Jason, but it wasn't him. I was like, oh, kid you not. Drove a block and Jason was walking down the street with somebody. I hadn't seen him in years, and I was like,
That's what I'm saying. What do you think
yeah,
that is?
I have no idea, bro. It's the glitch in the matrix. I don't know. It's the black cat, right? Like when they glitched it in the major. I have no idea.
It's like it happens. I'm noticing it lately. Like the other day, I thought about somebody that I used to work with. And like you said, I haven't seen this person in years. And I spent the earlier part of the day just thinking about this person. And then when I got off work and I went to the store and I was walking out, that person was walking in. And I hadn't seen
That's
this
funny.
person in years.
Bro, I don't know because my wife, like, whenever I tell her stuff like that, I was like, I was just thinking about this, and then it happened here, and it happened here, and she's like, "Well, think about $1 billion, right?" It's like
It don't
it
work
ain't
like
worked yet.
that.
Yes, it hasn't worked yet. So, because again, it's not something you force; it's just something that just pops in your head, right? And it's like, oh, I wonder what such and such is doing. And then sometimes you wonder if it's the internet, like, or something. It's like
It's
WandaVision, right?
it is. Well, yeah. I mean, actually, that is what I kind of think, that it's the human internet.
Yeah,
I have this. I think I have this hypothesis that a lot of the technology that we have are like bootleg versions of what
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
kind of
The human
embedded.
network.
Yeah, it's kind of embedded in us, but we just um, I still think we are very young and immature when it comes to accessing and learning and how to control every facet of
Yeah, yeah,
our being.
yeah. I would agree because I've known, like, literally there have been times when somebody has died and you just know it for no
Yeah,
other reason, just to know it. The whole your whole day has changed because of the incoming news kind of thing. I've had that happen before. So I don't know, bro. Like, seriously.
hmm.
Maybe we'll table it. We'll crowdsource it. Does anybody know what that
is
is?
is people listening and watching?
Yeah, yeah, there's people watching.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Can we get a comment on that? See if anybody knows.
like when you're
um,
thinking about something, a person or an event or whatever, and it comes to fruition, what does that mean?
what
Uh,
is that?
yeah, because I always notice. What's up, Danielle? I always notice when it's something that's out of the ordinary as
Hey,
opposed to
Danielle.
everyday occurrence, right? And those are the things that make it stand out even more. When it's not like you said, somebody hadn't thought about in years, or maybe it's a specific topic, right? Sometimes it'll be topics for me. I'm thinking about a particular topic, and then or a song, and it's like, hold on, this it's not even a popular song or whatever, and it just pops up in a conversation in one place, and then it'll happen again. So it's not that it's just one place; is that it happens again, and it has nothing to do with it. And I'm not talking about internet ads, but I'm just talking about people. And it's like,
Yeah,
what is that?
patterns.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, what is that and why? And knowing me, sometimes I'll like go back and say, okay, well, the possibility of this happens is because maybe I just come up with some random reason.
Right,
Uh,
some rationalization.
she said deja vu, or is it
Deja
vuja
vu.
day? Like Miss Carmen. Like where something never happens. Is that vuja day? I don't know. Now, deja vu is when you live
You
something
feel
twice.
Yes, you feel
Yeah,
like you've experienced a moment already, where
yeah,
you'll have a moment where you're like, I feel like I've experienced this already. I've seen scientific explanations where, as far as deja vu, where one explanation is that your brain, your subconscious, is uh, faster at picking up a lot of information
yeah, yeah,
before you can process it.
yeah.
That's one explanation, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, yeah, because here's what's funny though. When you said that, it made me think about this: is the fact that everything that that you see, everything that you hear, is in the past. All of it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's in
so
the past before you can actually, your conscious mind can actually
yeah.
process it.
So that's what's crazy, right? Literally everything you experience in life is in the past. It's like the internet thing.
Natalie, the fact that I just had this same conversation with my friend last night,
I know that's crazy, right?
there must be something in the air. So, hey, maybe everybody did get the upgrade during the planetary alignment. It's
Yeah, I
just now
know.
coming to fruition.
Maybe it's the vaccines that I,
Man,
I ain't even going there.
that,
I'm thinking the vaccines
that
follow the
now
white
that's
cat.
a
Yeah,
conspiracy theory right there.
we literally just talked about that, Danielle, about the Matrix and the cat. It's like I don't know what it is, because again, this is not like it's a conversation. like a new conversation for us on here, but I've had this conversation with Lamar, my wife, like for years, because all of these things just start happening, and it's just I don't know.
So you say you don't want to touch the vaccine?
Oh, what's funny here is we got questions of how is the vaccine rollout in Kentucky. I
Uh,
guess it's rolling out well. So one thing I will say about it is, in terms of current events, ask Kevin, because all I care about is what I care about. Like serious, I've gotten at that stage in my life, at least this
right.
year,
You
where
focus.
I'm singularly focused on what I'm focused on, and if it has nothing to do with what I care about, then I don't. I know some people. So I would assume it's going okay in terms of the rollout because I know
Yeah.
people that have gotten the vaccine. Outside of that, I'm sitting here in my office working on what I'm working on. That's it.
As far as I'm aware, as far as I'm aware, I think it is going well. Just like you said, I know people who actually wanted it and they got it with no problems and
Right.
no hiccups or nothing like that. So as far as the rollout, it seems to be going well.
Yeah.
Um, I just think that it remains to be seen. You know, just see how things play out over the long term. Given that this is experimental, uh, it's
Yeah.
experimental.
That's life.
There are no long term um, studies about it, so it's just kind of for me, just kind of let's sit back and wait and see, I guess, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just think,
That's where I am. So
yeah, I'll just leave. We'll just leave it at that, I guess.
yeah, like I have no thoughts one way or the other because I honestly haven't been focused on it.
Hmm.
So, but again, just going back to just thoughts and things. I don't know. Sometimes, like one thing, like for example, and we've talked about this before, is not necessarily just a random thought, right? But almost like thinking in terms of manifesting outcomes. And I have had that happen specifically, and and that's what I started practicing because when you talked about Jordan Peterson, about being very specific about the things you say, the things you speak in terms of goals and outcomes. Like, I'll be very specific in goals, especially if it involves other people. Like, okay, I want to either meet this person, I want to work with this person, I want to do X, Y, Z because I've done it in the past. And literally, those things have happened, not necessarily in the way I thought they would happen, but nonetheless, they happen. So that's what I do. Like, I've been
When
scribbling on my board. Go
when
ahead.
they do happen, are you reminded that you spoke that?
No, I write it down.
Okay.
Like, so I know it happened for a reason. Like, for example, I'll just use his name because it was real. Before, and again, this is pretty big. Like before we went to California, we wrote down the name of one of like because it happened before. So we like I'll give you a primer, and then I'll give you the example as well. So one time before we went to California, it was in 2011, 2013. We wrote down a list of the things we wanted to happen. Right? We didn't have any specific names. We just wrote down a list of things that happened. Like everything we had on the list happened. We went out there, zero network in terms of people we know. There was my second trip to California ever, and it was in a different field. So all of these things happen. So it's like boom. Next time we do anything, we always write down the goal before you leave, right? And not only that, tell people like one of the things like before we went to for our accelerator, one of the things I said, I was like, getting there is not the goal. Raising money is the goal for this particular thing, right? That's all I kept saying. I was like, if I leave without raising money, then the goal is not hit. It just isn't because this is the goal. Wrote it down on the board. Touch and agree, right? Something we say in church all the time. Touch and agree. And not only that, we wrote down specific names. And one of the investors that we wanted was Tim Draper. He's a California investor. His father pretty much built, created, investment, in terms of startups and that kind of stuff. So we had his name on the list, and not only that, when we got there, we had a name of list of mentors, like because we had did like a speed dating thing, and then like so it was like 60 companies, 50 companies. It was like 50 companies there, and we did speed dating and we met various people, and so you write down on the list who you want to be matched with, and they have to write down on the list to be matched with you as well. Well, lo and behold, he was one of the people that we matched with, and he agreed to meet with us, right? Be our advisor. But we only met him like twice the whole time, right? And so on the second time, he voluntarily said that he would invest in our company. We didn't
Tim
ask.
Draper.
Yeah, we didn't ask. He voluntarily invested, so he was one of our first investors. And
Tim
so
Draper. Draper's like the OG Mac Daddy.
yeah, exactly. But it's that same kind of thing, right? Is the fact that you manifest that stuff, like you get very specific, going back to the Jordan Peterson thing you talked about, and then you just focus on that. Like that's mentally, because it wasn't anything that we did to like force it to happen. No, it's like we did other things to make it conducive to happen, if that makes any sense. But it ain't like we can force like, hey man, take the bar. Like what, you're gonna be part of our company, kind of stuff, right? So
But
so
you guys
yeah,
did all you could do to place yourself in position.
yeah, and not only that is sometimes the timing isn't right,
Mm.
right? Because like before we even was able to get into any of these places, we got rejected tons of times, like
Mm.
tons. Like some of the investors that invested, like 500 startups specifically, they rejected us. I don't know how many times. And then it was like, okay, give me a goal, I'll hit it. And then it was based on that ended up being part of, and what was weird. This was probably a year after we met one of the founders, and he was like, "Nah, it's not happening." And then it happened, right? And so just a lot of different things, but again, being very focused, being singularly minded, and so that's kind of where I am right now in terms of like when we talked about goals at the very beginning of the conversation is I'm so focused in this particular area. For example, I'll give you a prime example. Last year in 2020, before 2020 hit, when I started really focusing in on art, I said I wanted to work on a television show. That was my goal. I had zero connections. I knew nobody. Like literally, I knew nobody in the industry or whatever. And then somebody randomly, like literally randomly reached out to me like, "Hey, would you like to be a character designer for the show?" Of course, it's like, and
Mm.
this is during the pandemic stuff, right? And so that's what I'm talking about in terms of like manifestation. And
Intentions.
yeah, I
The
believe
power.
that putting that out there because I didn't tell anybody else. That was just one of my goals. I had it on my to do list, my wish list. That for me to have a successful year, this is all I wanted out of that year. And the way I planned on getting was like, yeah, I'll travel to LA. I'll meet all of these people that are in this space. They'll love me and give me an opportunity. None of that happened because nobody traveled anywhere that, last year kind of thing. Right. So that, and ironically, I just kept focusing on the goal. Like if the opportunity presents itself, let me be prepared. Right. And so the same thing I believe will happen in a variety of ways because is going back to what Jordan Peterson was saying is being hopeful, right? Being hopeful of outcomes regardless of what's going on. Being hopeful that these things will work. So when I focus on getting more fit, I'm hopeful that that'll help increase my longevity on this earth. That will help me to be a better father, be a better husband. All of these kinds of things wrapped up into that. And again, is just very basic. Just very basic things, but just believe in it and really working toward that goal and always say one step forward is progression regardless of if you wanted to take 1,000 at least take one, right? So every day I at least try to take one mic if it's a micro step, if it's a leap, I always try to keep going forward because I believe, I don't know, I haven't lived it, I don't know what's going to happen 3 days from now, 2 days from now, whatever. But I just believe my faith allows me to go in that direction, thinking it's the right steps, right? And so So again, going back to the manifestation piece, I this is just me. I believe wholeheartedly that if you focus on a goal hard enough, if you focus on manifesting that in a real way, then it can happen. And and like you said, you can't make other people do stuff, but when it happens, it's like, man, something occurred. You know what I'm saying? You know, like when somebody's on your timeline, something happened. So I don't know. What say you, audience? What say you, J Kev?
Well, you hit on a lot of things. One of the things you, when you were talking about intentions and talking about writing things out, it made me think of the law of attraction. You know, it's the law of attraction, which is a popular
Like,
idea
yeah,
that's been promoted and going, you know, being pushed a lot in our current culture. And the part of the law of attraction, I guess, that you were really bringing out that isn't really brought out is the part where you have to be involved as
right,
far as putting in work and putting yourself in position in order for your intentions to be carried out, um, and just staying consistent and staying focused and hopeful about that, about your side of the story, and then letting everything else play out, you know, the way it
yeah,
happens,
because I can't
versus
control the other stuff. Yeah.
just saying that, you know, my intentions are I'm going to be rich and wealthy, and then I sat home.
They're waiting
Like
for something to happen.
this law of attraction ain't working. I'm attracting I'm attracting wealth. It
I'm
ain't
trying
it
to
ain't
read
working.
the magnet. Where are these metal filings coming from? And
And
so,
I got to do a correction real quick
yeah, go
on
ahead.
talking about hope, being hopeful, and Jordan Peterson. I don't think I might have gotten, and I might have not been totally accurate about that. So
Okay.
I just wanted to put that out there because I know it's been recorded, and somebody may find it, but like, wait a minute, J. Kev's way off. So
Nah, man, he didn't say hope. He was
yeah,
saying tropes. Like,
but I just want to put that out there to mitigate if I am way off. I'm kind of shooting off the hips here. Usually I've gotten, you know, I got stuff pulled up and stuff, but shooting
here's
off the
what's
hips.
funny. So when you said that, and the fact that I said tropes, and then you said shooting off the hip, it made me think it's like, do people actually think of where their phrase comes from?
Nope.
It's like, do people shoot off the hip anymore? Like in terms of like cowboys and Indians, or you
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
the but
Tropes.
but anyway, just to kind of bring everything in, wrap things up, um, and just start from the premise of where we were going
We
is,
started with encouragement, and
yeah,
then, you know, we kind of went down the trail of some of the things that help us stay encouraged, and then
correct.
talk, huh?
No, because she said trope because he was dead. Because I was like, I said, instead of hopes, tropes, and then you said shooting off the hip. But anyway, go ahead.
You can't plan that stuff, man. It's just like a perfectly synchronized.
Disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what makes it fun, though.
So anyway, you were
Yeah, we
giving.
talked about encouragement, talked about some ways to stay encouraged, and then just talked about, you know, the power of staying encouraged and how they can help you when it comes to achieving some of the goals and things that you may have in life.
Yeah, and the power of mindset too, right?
Yes,
That's really huge, and really,
what
like,
you frame your mindset with, you know, if you
yeah,
have a mindset of encouragement.
one of the key things that we talked about early on was just being thankful, being grateful, a perspective, and
That's the
basically,
mindset.
yeah, you dictating that, right? Nobody can give that to you. They can, lead you to the direction, but they can't give that to you. It's something you have to practice. It's something you have to really follow through with in terms of doing that on a daily basis, getting your mind. Go ahead.
And that's what made me think about when you were talking about that you're in a place now where you've made the time to have that quiet time to where you can think about your mindset and some of the things that you're doing, some of the things that you want. to dictate and designing your life versus just being on that constant hamster wheel of uh, just constantly going from one thing to the other, not really thinking about what you're doing and not giving yourself time to think and process.
Right. Yeah, and one of the ways that I do that, just to give some insight, is I have a general idea. I have a very specific idea, but I have a general idea. I don't. She said, "A sidebar. The shirt is officially vintage." I know. I'm wearing an old Flash shirt. Uh, Adobe Flash. Ironically, I don't even use it anymore. It's now Adobe Animate, but I don't even use that anymore either. But anyway, side note. But one of the ways
Very
that I do,
insightful.
what you say?
Audience. Very insightful audience we have.
Yeah, one of the ways that I stay focused, so to speak, on the overall overarching goal is I personally don't do anything outside of the main thing. So if it doesn't lead me down the direction I'm trying to go, then I pretty much get rid of it out of my psyche or out of my participation. I just don't do it. What are you laughing for?
I'm just thinking about. I'm still thinking about the tropes, and I said shooting from the hip.
Yeah, because it made me think shooting. I was like, who actually shoots from their holster anymore? But anyway, uh, but yeah, but so that's one of the ways I still do a lot of a variety of different things. But again, it's the same one of the old sayings, tropes in churches: keep the main thing. And so that's what I try to do on a daily basis: is keep the main thing first, God, family, and then everything else is really revolved around me trying to crack this story field. That's what I
I
call
got
it.
I got a question that's way off topic.
Go ahead.
Have you seen Coming to America yet? The
Yes, I
second
have.
one.
Yes.
Do we think? Can do you care to conversate about it a little bit?
So yeah, I'll give you my perspective, and here's my perspective on a lot of stuff. So you'll get to see my lens on things, right? So from the standpoint of a movie, it's like okay, it's okay. Like there were some things I liked, some things I didn't, but I'd rather not talk about the stuff that I didn't like,
Okay,
just for the sake of I'm done tearing down black people
like
for any particular reason.
gotcha.
Like straight
Yeah.
up, I am. And so my perspective on those kinds of things is like, well, sure it could have been better for me personally or for somebody else, but it ain't my story. They made it. I thought, me and my wife were talking about the set designs were beautiful. I thought
Oh
they
man,
were great.
yeah, it
Like,
was next
the
level.
costumes were dope. That was good. And it ain't my story. So I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what to, it's like what I didn't like, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't like that makes way more money than that. So it's like I'm not gonna focus my energy on like everybody else. Oh, that was trash. Like, nah, it wasn't trash. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no,
It was,
no.
it
Yeah, I
was
didn't think it was
I
trash.
thought it was I thought it was good. It was way better than what I was expecting, honestly. It actually was because you start hearing everybody talk. It's like and then when I saw it, I usually cringe when something is like 20 years old or 30 years old, and then they do the remake. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I thought some things could have been better. Some things I wouldn't have done. It wasn't my movie. I didn't invest in it in terms of like the direction. So it is what it is.
I thought it was good, and just we talked about encouragement. I thought the messages overall in the movie was uplifting and encouraging. Danielle says, I enjoyed the unique storyline. Yes, way better than expected. Yeah, for me, it was way better than expected. Especially like you said, I started seeing stuff pop up on a storyline about, they did so and so didn't like it because of such and such. So when I had this frame of mind when I put it on, then I had to switch real quick to the frame of mind of, hey, just judge this movie on the basis of its
Just
own
let it be.
merit.
Yeah,
Just let
it's
it
like
be.
what? You're just gonna relax and watch it. That simple. It's like
I laughed through the whole thing, man. I
yeah,
did.
I could see you doing that. That was like
I
I literally could see Kevin just laughing.
laughed through the whole thing. I laughed out loud.
As soon as the title came up, Kevin just
Started
cracking up.
laughing.
It's like, Ain't even said nothing yet. Kevin rolling on the floor. But
But
yeah,
you know, I thought it had a lot of good, uplifting, and encouraging messages in it. I thought it
yeah,
was more kid friendly, which is not bad. Yeah, Natalie, it was.
yeah. So, man, so again, because we discussed it. Me and my wife, when we watched it, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna. I was good with it. To be honest,
Yeah,
I was good with it. Yeah, that's it. It's like,
yeah.
so, so
And,
it's,
and
go ahead.
like you said, when you spend time trying in that area of creating content and
Yeah,
working on narrative and breaking down stories, like, oh, this is way harder
yeah. You're more
than it
like, so
looks.
for me specifically, I'm very sensitive to what it takes to make something.
Yeah,
Like, period. And so I always give credence to those that have done it,
yeah.
right? For example, there's this one thing that I usually point people to on the internet. It's somebody that made something, right? And I even though I personally don't like it, I applaud them for what they've accomplished. If that makes sense, right? I can separate my own judgment from the accomplishment in
Right.
terms of my own taste, my own whatever. And so I tend to lean toward giving people credit for doing something. I give people credit for taking the time to do it, the consistency in which they did to make it happen. And content aside, whether I agree with the content or I don't, I still understand what it took for them to do what they did, right? And so for me, when I judge these things, I don't judge it from the premise of, oh man, that's trash, that's garbage. Like, well, it's it depends on why you're calling it what you're calling it, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, and again, I think about this in a variety of different ways because sometimes people get elitist. It's like, oh, it wasn't this. Well, they didn't have the budget of that either. So it didn't have the same production schedule or whatever's involved. And so that's the way I tend to look at things. I tend to look at it from that premise. So they brought back the original story and reshaped it into a modern new story for younger audience. Wesley was 100 and Leslie didn't kill it. So I mean, yeah, exactly, exactly. So I was happy to see Wesley Snipes in it. I used to be a big Wesley Snipes fan.
He kind of
So
disappeared for a little
yeah,
bit, didn't
the tax stuff. Yeah, the tax stuff
he? Yeah.
killed him. The government, the government messed him up, and so when I think about those kinds of things, that's the way I look at it because it's easy to be a critic, it's easy to be a judge when you're not the one producing any of it, right? And again, I always tell people, even if I hate the story, it ain't my story to tell. So I focus on my own story. It's like if I think a story should be improved, then why am I not writing it? Why am I
Hmm.
not creating it? Why am I not producing it? Those are the ways that I look at that kind of stuff. So I put the onus back on myself when it comes to those kinds of creative endeavors.
So it's a whole different, complete frame of mind when it comes to just judging or looking at or thinking about anything in our culture. Yeah, Blade.
Love
Uh,
Blade.
you
The
cannot.
Mar-
It's hard to separate Wesley from Blade. I seen something that he was in conversation, or he had been in conversation with Kevin Feige, as far as maybe making some kind of appearance or something.
right,
Given
right.
that now the MCU's now in the multiverse, like you got, I mean, look, with the Spider Mans, you got what's his name, Toby
Miles, Tobey
Toby
Maguire.
Maguire possibly showing up, and some other ones showing up. So why can't you do it
Yeah, and
from?
so I think it would have a different feel and, yeah, I'm interested in seeing how the new Blade will pan out. Again, it's not my story. Um, I want it to be great so I can
Right,
enjoy it. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So it's like that's the way I'm looking at it, and also just from the standpoint of seeing Wesley get more roles because he I liked him. Like I said, I'm a Wesley Snipes fan, been a fan for a while, so I would love to see him get his shine and just do his thing. And plus, I'm all about black actors getting more opportunities. Period. And that's why, like in terms of coming to America. Uh, yeah, I'm all for it. Like, just like I just see a bunch of employed people. It's like,
Yeah, that's what
you
somebody
know,
else said
I
that
look at
too.
so practically, right? You know,
Yeah, the consistency
on
in the new
exactly
spawn.
that too.
The new Spawn. Yeah, Michael Jai White said
Jamie
he
Foxx
wasn't
was supposed to be Jack Green, not Jack. What's his name? Not
Michael
Jack.
Jai White.
Yeah,
Michael
Michael
J.
Jai White. He was the original Spawn, and then they were talking about Todd McFarlane was talking about using.
Jamie Foxx.
Yep, Jamie Foxx as the upcoming Spawn. It may work. I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's just like Michael Pattinson as Batman. It didn't make sense to me until I saw some of the previews, and I was like, okay, this may work, right? So I don't know. Who knows what they have? It's their vision. I
Yeah,
can't hate on somebody else's vision, you know. And again, I'll let them do what they do, and I'll focus on trying to improve what I'm doing, right? Because I probably will make some crappy stuff. You almost have to get better, right? And so I'm willing to make crappy stuff to get better at it.
that's funny you said that because that's how I feel about when I don't. I was just thinking about when I don't stay consistent with doing these things.
Yeah,
In my head, I know where I am and I know where I've been and know where I can be, and it's like, oh man,
yeah,
but you just roll on anyway.
yeah.
It's
That's
just like,
part of the fitness journey, right? Trust me. And that's one of the obstacles is the fact that I know what it takes to get to peak physical conditioning. And it's like, man, do I got time for that? Like, do I care? Do I want to do that again?
uh-oh, disappearing on me, Leif.
It's my mic is real sensitive.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, so anytime I touch it, it just drives. See, say get Wesley to do the voice of the homeless man and be. Yeah,
Man, I don't
I
know.
can't.
I
I can't afford him. I can't afford him.
can't.
It doesn't
Yeah,
sparkle.
man, doesn't spark.
So talking about Robert Pattinson and vampires, but yeah, man. So yeah, that's just my take on creativity. More power to the creatives that do what they do. If I don't agree with the story, I just don't watch it, and I focus on creating my own.
So instead of being a critic, be a creator,
Yeah,
or be a
improve.
critic and be a
Yeah,
creator.
improve, right? And again, that's not to say that if something is not objectionable that you don't speak out against it.
Right,
No
but at the
means.
same time,
But it's the difference between somebody like when we talked about the protest. George Floyd. Matter of fact, shout out to the family. They just received $27 million today for their settlement in that case. But it's just like whether or not if I don't agree with your tactics to get justice, then I can't complain if I'm not doing anything, right? And I shouldn't complain anyway. I should be
it's
doing
just
something.
right. It's more, hey,
Yeah,
they're
it's
in
that
their
simple.
lane.
Yeah,
Better be
it's
getting in
like
my lane.
hey, you do that because a lot of times we think it's an either or when it's an
Thank you. Yeah,
and that's again that's the and I didn't come to this overnight, right? It's just a
right.
lot for me personally. It's just experience in life and what I used to think and the way I used to think just changed. It's like okay, I saw different. It's like it just started changing. It just molds you into who you're gonna be, right? Life experiences and just information, all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm just done complaining about a lot of stuff, bro. Like, it just doesn't help me. It just doesn't. And so I just rather focus on moving forward. And again, if something's unjust or unjust or however you say it, then I will definitely say something about it. But I would rather do something because I know that's where my energies are focused in terms of progression in life and even showing my kids a pathway, right? And so
Man.
we talk about a lot of issues because again, my kids are getting old too, right? And so we actually have grown folk conversation in a sense in terms of life, the things that go on in life, the things that we see. We talk about racism, we talk about economic, we talk about all kinds of stuff. And and what I try to, my wife and I, what we try to, give them is like, okay, if you see these issues, what will you do to make it different? What can you do to change it? What things can you point out and improvements can you make in these particular areas, right? And so that's where I would rather focus my energy because again, if I stay angry all the time, then sometimes my anger is misplaced your anger can be misplaced in the wrong directions. And so you got to be careful with that. And I'm not saying that you don't get angry. I'm not saying that
Right.
at all.
It's
Yeah.
how you make use of that
Yeah.
anger.
Yeah. And be mindful. And because again, you don't want to bring the fire home, right? You want to make sure you get rid of all the flames in you when you come home because you don't want to focus it on the wrong people. So you got to be very careful of that. And sometimes you can't control that. A lot of different things for different people. However, when you think about it, just make sure that you focus on a goal. Make sure you focus and stay toward that goal and make the goal the thing.
Hmm.
The anger when
Anger will
mis
not be
when
before he turns into passion.
yeah. Yeah, seriously. I mean, because the reasons that I got into social justice and to begin with all had to do with things that happened to family members, and it's like this is not right, and that literally what molded and shaped me. Like seriously. So all of those kinds of things definitely. I'm always of the mindset that I'd rather build than tear down, in terms of my people first and foremost, but just in general, I'd rather tear down systems and replace people. So if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Okay. Just talking about the importance of having an encouragement mindset and just staying hopeful and just utilizing that in today's world. In today's world, we are being bombarded with all kinds of propaganda and messages that
All the
uh,
time.
are designed to tear us down and keep us in a state of fear and anger and bitterness. And it's up to that's up to each and every one of us to stop complaining and creating and doing what we're designed to do, making ourselves of use. We are given a body and we're given a will, and that will is being led to do something. So everybody's here with a lane to operate in, and you just got to find that lane and just start operating in it.
Yep. And to quote Ozzie Davis, probably written by Spike Lee, always remember to do the right thing.
You right. Every time you say it, I always want to say the song. I feel so
Thank you.
much
Thank you for
encouraged.
watching.
Really? Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
For sure.
That's
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, wrap it up,
So I
bro.
think that's all I got. Two shot guys at the mic. Lafe Taylor, J Kev here, just having our regular conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. And hopefully, we do leave you encouraged and leave you with some pebbles of positivity. I know I haven't said it in a while, so I figured I'll bring it back. Yep. We need the horn. So that's all we got. Peace out.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. God bless you. Good night.
God bless.